what you say, boy. Big up to all my Caribbean massive, big up to all my massive all around the world. This is no other than the Remix Morning Show. Right here on Black Power Media. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and I came to bring it for you and to you at the same time. But I ain't come here by myself. Let me introduce you to the host with the most, no other than Ricky. Right. Yeah. I had to bring in a little soaker because I knew Ricky was in the building. You know what I mean? What? Don't start.
I'm not gonna start. But how are you, Air Doctor? How was your trip?
My trip was nice. It was good to get out of the country. Good to get some sun. Good to just not be in America for a second, even though I was somewhat still, Yeah, let's keep it 100. It was still somewhat in America, but it was good. It was good. How was your weekend?
Busy. Friday we had the joint action with Baltimore PSL for Palestine, so that was a big action that we did. Saturday I collapsed.
What?
I've been running, so Saturday was like a off day. And then my son allergy season, so we had to go to patient first and things like that quickly. Make sure that he's good. But
so little man good?
Yeah, he's good. He's trying to take full advantage. Today he's out of school. So I was debating on coming on because he might just bust in here.
Oh, he's gonna bust in. I'm just waiting for it.
Yeah.
Mom. Are you the one? Are you the parent that does the growling like get out the room, or do you just?
Yeah. I'm definitely the because I try. He's on the spectrum, so. And I before I was an early childhood education teacher, so I've dealt with kids on the spectrum, but it's a lot different when it's your kid. So it's a different kind of built-in patience that you have to have. So I'm developing that muscle, and a lot of things we're learning together. But he's a double Scorpio and a Virgo rising.
Wait a minute. So, speaking of. It is Scorpio season, in case y'all did not know. That's right. Scorpios is in the building. We about to take over. Listen. All right, go ahead. Finish what you were saying about Scorpio.
Well, I was going to ask for prayer. Those kind of signs. I need some prayer. Help me. But no, he's a good kid. But, when I do my speeches and he's with me,
yeah,
he wants to come up to the mic. He wants to say some things. Like if I'm doing a presentation, he don't care. He's like, looking up, hey, there's no Wi-Fi. Like that type of.
Yeah. Oh, I remember at the conference.
I need Wi-Fi.
I remember at the conference, he was in the back like, yo, Mom was good.
He don't care.
That's dope. So like I said, I play a little bit of Caribbean music. How you get into the Caribbean culture and the music and soca and stuff like that? Is it your family?
How?
Yeah.
I Trinity born.
What? Trinity born. Trinity born. Roti and Moby and
not so much
Sorrow.
Moby.
Not too much Moby.
Not so much Moby. That's nasty. But
y'all know what, in case y'all don't know what Moby is.
Doubles
Moby is tree bark. And you gotta mix it with some sorrow and some ginger for it to even tastes right. I worked at a Trinidadian vegetarian restaurant, so I got to learn how to make rotis and all them type of things. Barbecue, tofu.
Bust up shots.
So, some China.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What? Get me started. So, so that's what it is. We're going to have a dope show today. Like I said, I was talking to Ricky before the show came, and I was like, listen, you got to put me up on what's going on in the world because I have been out the loop, and it's a lot of things. Everybody talking about Palestine, but there's stuff going on in the Congo, I'm hearing. There's stuff going on in America. There's stuff going on everywhere. So that's where you come to Black Power Media to the Remix Morning Show so you can know and get the lowdown, all right? So other than that, Jackie says she has some things to do today. Kim has some things to do today. So we got Kamal coming in. He had to go drop and kick the kids out the car. So we're going to get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remix it. I'm going to start off. We're going to go ahead and go to a quick break, and then we're going to come back and get into it. That's cool?
All right.
All right, let's do that. This is no other than the Remix Morning Show, y'all. So make sure y'all hit that like, subscribe, and all that as we take our first break right here on the Remix Morning Show. Joe. What's good, everybody? Welcome out once again, Remix Morning Show. In case you didn't know, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit all them buttons. Matter of fact, hit the sharing button, because Sharon's caring, Karen's sharing, and even if Karen ain't sharing, you could be sharing and letting the person know that this is the show. All right, go to patreon.com and drop some change in the bucket. Become a member over there and get some more content. All right, with that said, it went straight from summer to fall, in case y'all didn't know. And I know y'all been missing out on the weather report. Y'all ain't know what to wear going outside. So let me help y'all out. All right, first let's start off at the ATL. This morning, it was like 35 degrees. It was brick city out here. But we getting a high of 51 degrees. Let's take it to DC. They also only getting a high of 51 degrees. I bet it was freezing John Blizzo up there too. All right, other than that, let's take it to Houston. Houston got a high today of 61 degrees. It's a lot of ones going on here, but not as shy. Chicago got a high of only 43 degrees. You know how the wind blows in Chicago. All right, later let's take it over to the West Coast, what they say is the best coast, over to Oakland. They got a high today of 75 degrees. So, yeah, fall is coming, man. Fall is coming over there. It's winter over here damn near now. All right, so let's take it to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, they got a high of 89 degrees. Big up to Puerto Rico. You go over there and chill out. Next, let's take it to the motherland, no other land, and let's go to the Congo. Congo, they got a high today of 89 degrees. Now, that's pretty hot, but I'll tell you what's pretty not hot. I seen this video and I was like, man, stop the madness. Check this out.
If you ain't suck a dick, babies, you can get the fuck up on my shit. 100 round, hit him with the Glock, take a fucker down. 100 round, bitch, we in that kill, you gon' take him down. 12, get behind me, we gon' do 60 fucking miles. I remember this, keep on talking, bitch, I remember this. Want you being that boy head, suck his shit, he went out bad. 50 round, nigga know what, play with me.
All right, I can't take no more. Listen, just put some clothes on the kid backwards and tell him to jump or something. Good Lord, this is ridiculous. They got these kids out here just repeating what's going on right now just to get a like. Stop that, y'all. These kids, stop influencing this next culture, this next generation to be on some bull. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is. It's not. All right. So with that said, let me go ahead and get back to the Remix Morning crew. You know how we do right here on the Remix Morning Show, y'all. All right. And we got Kamal K. Franklin in the building. What's good? Once he unmutes. But anyway, Ricky Ryan, your thoughts? You imagine your son doing that?
No. I couldn't imagine my son doing that, but that's not the type of environment that I have my child in. So I guess that makes a difference. I mean, children curse. That's not something that I'm like, oh, the cursing. But like the whole thing, the context of what's being said, the adults in the background encouraging it. Yeah, it's a lot.
What about Killer Caleb up there, Kamal? No Killer Caleb?
How much money can you make?
Well, enough to get your mic turned on. Yeah. You're coming in now. There we go.
There you go. I had it a little far away. It was plugged in, but I kind of had it off to the side. I guess I got to bring it closer to be heard.
Yeah, I learned my lesson.
True. And I'm sure you got the instructions that only the fabulous ear doctor can give. The greatest
overproducing,
Yeah. Greatest producer, I said. Now, in fact, are you staying for the whole show today?
I'll be here for the whole show
Thank
today.
the Lord, B. What's going on?
Yeah, don't need Kamal in charge again.
Oh no.
No offense, Kamal, but
no.
You notice when everybody says no offense and then they say but.
No, yeah. Then you know it's offensive. Then you know.
But yeah, that's what's going on in hip-hop.
I can't pick. Yeah, I mean, like you said, different environments. I mean, we ain't got to play it either. How about that? Yeah.
Oh, we didn't have to play it.
No.
But I just wanted to let people know that this is what's happening. It went from telling crisscross to jump and where they close backwards to this. It's wild. But they did have groups called illegal.
You have this fantasy of like what the 90s was like in hip hop, of all pure and pristine. You always compare it back to your day.
It wasn't.
Yeah. But you always hark back to your golden era of hip hop.
But the thing is like some of the older heads forget that. So I like to help remind them that they did have groups like Illegal. They did have groups like the Youngsters that was talking about, busting you up, blah, 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 So let's keep it 100. All right. Cool. With that said, I guess y'all go ahead and get to this news, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.
News? What news? Hi, Ricky.
Hi.
Are you a little frozen? You look a little frozen to me.
I think so. I think my computer froze, in fact. So I'm trying to work that out.
Well, it's a good still picture of you, just to let you know. So you don't got like
thank you.
You got a little smile on.
Sometimes,
you know what I'm saying? So it's a good little
you never know.
Sometimes say it again. Is that the next piece?
You never know. Sometimes it catches you.
Yeah. I always get caught like, half laughing and it's like, oh my God, it looks terrible. So I guess we can hit the news and then hope that Vicky unfreezes.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna jump back on.
Good morning. Remix morning show here. We're here with the fabulous ear doctor.
Yeah.
We were here a few seconds ago with Ricky, aka Erica, aka Bat. You know what I'm saying? But her computer froze, and then I came in just in time as always. Never on time, but always on time at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
And there's no way I would have left you on the screen by yourself, so I'm back.
I appreciate it. What do you? No, I hate it. You do know. I hate it. It's not my favorite.
You look like an elder lost at the KB toy store when somebody ain't.
There's somebody not around to give me directions. No, that's very true. I need a lot of directions.
Oh my goodness, what's going on with Rick?
I could do good. I could do good with the interview part, but the whole like solo. Let me just talk into the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm just like. I'm like, yeah. What? Why am I just talking to a screen?
That's a Jared Ball, Jackie Lukeman, Coco type thing.
Yeah, they're all good at that.
Yeah.
Oh
I can't just sit there by myself. I was just telling them like when you were gone, it was going to be a disaster. So it was a great.
No, it's coming back.
No, I hate to sit there and talk to. I know there's people out there. I'm assuming it says it's like over 194. We haven't gotten like donations in a while, but I'm gonna come back to that. Back to that. But I hate, and it's the first of the month, so I'm gonna come back to that. So checks were written, checks were gotten, bills were paid. We didn't get our bills paid, but I'm gonna come back to that. But some people have like they can do the whole talking and be one with the community. Even we were talking about Umar yesterday. Could do that shit. I do not like to sit at a camera by myself and just speak into it. It just feels weird and, like talking into a black hole or whatever.
It is though.
Exactly, Big Teal. I need company.
It is like that. When I'm used to doing things like this or panels or interviews where there's like some other person. So the first time I recorded, and it was on the workers union potential for Bravo. So I just, gave a little piece, but it did feel like I was talking to myself. And especially since it's not a live, right? So you're not seeing people comment. So it's definitely like trying to stay on top of your notes and not segue, because I'm a good trail off person, especially if I don't have anybody to
I'm like, notes. What are notes for?
Yeah. Right, even with notes. So so it was a little weird. It's a lot different. I probably won't do that too often because it is different.
I got people in CMB, they keep asking me to do these little short videos. And I'm just like, are you going to ask me a question? It's like, no, this is the concept, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I hate this. Like, I'll do it because you think I should be doing it. But it's also like, yo, that's right. We just got $5 because it says the ear doctor. You know what? Y'all should get praise to the ear doctor. He was gone.
Wow.
And Ricky
Look at that
messed up the show.
fairy.
Last week, Ricky messed up the show.
And yeah, sure.
Because the ear doctor gave her some instructions on how to run things, and she couldn't make that happen. And so the show, you know what happened, whatever.
Yeah, they were there. They know.
They kind of know, So y'all should definitely be giving up some money for the ear doctor today.
Hey, keep me around. But big up to Piper Carter podcast. Make sure y'all check out her show, Beyond Breaking Barriers. And we got Mr. I'm at school right now working, Dr. Jerry Ball. So big up to everybody. But that's what it is. I'll let y'all go ahead and get to the news because I know Ricky always comes prepared with mad news. So
yeah, I ain't got shit for you. Yeah,
I know.
Just learn to be alone, Kamal, so you know how the feels just dealing with your personality. I like that. You should give some money because I put your thing up. How about that? Okay, Ricky, you sent me anything, or you put it? You want?
Oh Lord, no, I gotta resend it. I sent it to the producer.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Send it.
We can do
wait a
this
minute.
story.
Wait. Just tell me which one you want me to bring up.
Oh, the Congo.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I know I made the comment yesterday about why you all like platform reactionary people just based on like Umar, and I could concede to Jav's point. I think there are points where it's necessary to discuss what other people are saying. I'm just not in my organizing period in this era of organizing that I'm in. Not so sure that's a useful thing because I found ways to not actually have to address Umar directly without but still addressing the point and that seemed to be sufficient. So this is an article discussing the issue that's happening right now in the Congo. I know a lot of people are bringing that up, trying to make the connections with Sudan and Haiti as well, to Palestine and Gaza. I'm going to read a bit of it. A record 6.9 million people have been displaced by conflict across Congo, the United Nations Migration Agency said, making it one of the world's largest displacement and humanitarian crises. The decades-long conflict has been the primary reason for displacement. The International Organization for Migration said Monday in a report based on data from the Congo's 26 provisions. At least 80% of the displaced people live in eastern Congo's provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, Ituri, and Tanganyika? I apologize if I said that wrong.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
have long been overturned. Thank you, doctor, for the confirmation. Which have long been overrun by dozens of armed groups seeking to share the region's gold and other resources. So I can just, I guess, end there from reading the article because there's just a few things that I wanted to add in addition to that. Because we're talking about these connections. But even to the point, there was something that was raised because I'm in Geechee's Barter and Build. They're reading the Black Power in Palestine. So it was a question asked about comparisons. Like, is it necessary to compare? And I kind of questioned, well, should there be comparisons or should we be making parallels in our analysis? Like, do they need to be exact comparisons or can they be parallels that lead to the same conclusion, which of course would be Western imperialism? Because I don't think it necessarily needs to be a one-to-one because it's not really a one-to-one, but there are a set of parallels between both situations that we can draw on, particularly the way that the Congo and the displacement is being detailed in that article completely leaves out the West. And it completely leaves out the West funding Uganda and Rwanda to instigate the civil war. And then it loosely touches on the resources, but I think it's very important to understand that 70% of the world's cobalt is in the Congo. And right now, with the new push for green energy, that has really upticked the amount of what's the word I'm trying to say? Like hardship, I guess, that's been happening. There's been a lot of like amputations on women and children because all men, women, and children, all Congolese people are working in those mines. So 70% of the world's cobalt is coming from the Congo, but according to Comrades and Friends of the Congo, over 70% of the Congo is impoverished, extreme poverty, meaning that they live off less than $2 a day. So with 70%, they're producing these major resources that the West is taking and using, and also using as a way to propagate these civil wars to keep militaries in the Congo because they're unstable, right? There's so much destabilization going, but they're also draining it as well. And then the other thing I think is important. So when people say, well, we're talking about the Congo, specifically, we're talking about the Congo, but we're not. Nobody's talking about the Congo. We're only talking about Gaza, right? And the Gaza, especially the way that Umar is saying it, right? Good luck to those people, but that ain't got nothing to do with us. But Israel is their biggest exporter. Their biggest export is diamonds. And where do you think Israel's getting those diamonds from? They're getting it from the DRC. And then last year, the DRC had charged, what's his name? Is it David? I think it's David Gertler. He's a multi-billion-dollar Israeli Orthodox Jew that has been for decades. All of his wealth, they said, by the time he was 43, he built an estimated net worth of $1.2 billion. All of that from mining diamonds and other materials in Africa. So he has just been found, I guess, guilty of exploitation and all of that last year. So these are just a lot of the things that I think people miss in the way that we discuss it, because I think when we talk about the primary and secondary contradictions, I think it needs to really be understood in terms of how we're speaking about these connections, right? Because even online, a lot of the connections that are being made is just simply, well, these people are being displaced and so are these people, right? Which is, it's true, but that's not really the crux of like the root cause being Western imperialism, and then Zionism being a fracture of that.
Yeah, people don't like to, and I mean, I completely agree with everything that you just said, because people don't like to connect the things that are the most obvious around. This is not just simply, oh, how bad it is that somebody is bombing somebody kind of thing. This is really about like what is behind this, right? And what happened to put them in this position to even have this weaponry and the economy that they've built up to even take over somebody's land. And why, if we don't stop this here or we don't call it out here, it'll happen continually in other places. And the people are right. Like, we don't always, again, that's something I brought up with Cornel West, was obviously we are under undue influence in terms of Western propaganda and media. And so the things that make the news here, obviously there's going to be a more direct reaction to it. And other things, we have to build up interest, right?
Right.
So when we see things happening in other places, we as organizers and activists frequently do this. It's like, how do we make this something that gets other people's attention, that becomes something that we can work on? And, for if someone like Umar, and not exclusively this, but if somebody was claiming that they were so interested in these topics and these areas and these people, then they would develop some organizing campaign to try to put attention by doing all the things that organizers do, everything from civil disobedience to direct action to media campaigns to rallies to panels, everything that we can to connect and bring out the voices, not just your voice that you have here, but the voices of the people who are actually suffering, so they can tell people what the connection is between their suffering and the government that we live under, why we have to struggle around these particular issues. And so that's something that we have to continually do. I think we, relatively speaking, do it well here. But I think you're completely correct that this is an issue, that we have to continually deal with in terms of connecting the issues of U.S. hegemony, of Western hegemony and control, over our lives, and again, the lives of other African people and other people internationally
Right.
who are not Africans, who also suffer from US and Western colonialism in different degrees and ways, but which are directly connected to the struggle to free everybody from those different types of imperialist objectives and gains and ideas and military hegemony again that they have over the world.
Yeah. And the other thing is the people who typically say no one's talking about this or nobody's talking about that are the people who are not talking about it. What I found most interesting is that, being in an organization and being in movement spaces, we're aware of organizations like Friends of the Congo. We have good relationships with organizations like Friends of the Congo. Every year for the third week of October, they run the Congo Week, which is a week dedicated to getting information out about the Congo, doing panels, teachings, etc., similar to what we do for the month of AFRICOM. But they take a whole week out of that month that we would action. I couldn't tell you how many people participated in that. And that's not to say that there's people who don't care, but it is to make that point about the way that other conflicts and other issues are being brought up to sort of dismiss what's happening in Palestine, right? Because especially if we're talking about the Congo in terms of like the comprador class and how we see and understand Haiti, right? What's happening to the Congo right now is another issue of blackface imperialism, where Rwanda and Kenya to an extent, but Uganda as well. They're all involved in taming, murdering, maiming Congolese people. There's been a plethora of actions against this, calling out Uganda specifically, calling out Rwanda specifically, especially since Rwanda, he likes to play that he is some sort of Pan-Africanist, and then people buy that up, right? But he is not. But we see that same sort of parallel happening in Haiti. And I think that once we understand these sort of primary contradictions, what is occurring in these places begins to make more sense. Like we can actually begin to describe what's happening in Sudan, right? And not have it, not have to have it told to us by people, because I think that's the other issue, that people are not really investigating. You're relying on Instagram memes and shorts and these little quick videos that people would like you to make to explain something that's decades long, right? That has so much history and so much unpacking, primarily because it was made to be messy by the West, right? I don't think even when we're talking about Sudan now, nobody stops to say, but why are there two Sudans?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Nobody really questions why are there two Sudans? Because that might be, that might be part of the problem too.
I was going to say, like, part of even the Palestine story is like before, and this is why the West is able to frame it as everything started when Hamas broke out of the open air prison / concentration camp and went into Israel, because they don't cover when the day-to-day killings and murders, arrests and jailings and imprisonment. In other words, the day-to-day control that the Israelis, through the United States and other Western countries, have over the Palestinian people. And so then people just think this stuff happens out of the blue, because there's been no focus or control. And again, if it's left to our organizations and institutions, which only have such, it's a relatively speaking small reach, then there's only a small amount of people, relatively speaking, who are informed about what's taking place, who are ready to sort of like jump on it and then try to get other people to jump on it, to challenge now the narrative that the West puts out. But we all know that these things are decades in the making. This is things happening in the Congo. They have a line through of history around sort of imperialism, Western control, and neoliberalism, building up the comprador African class to take over when they can't be there on the ground directly, and then providing weapons and other monetary benefits to them and their family members a lot of times, or to those in government control, to sort of keep them in line, to make sure that the flow of resources keep leaving their country, going out to the West. So there's a history there that, you're not going to learn in a video, that the New York Times or other mainstream media outlets are not going to cover. And the moment something happens in the Congo that brings it to the forefront, like some explosion of some kind, where people are either challenging their government or challenging the West, then it's presented all of a sudden in Western media as folks are just overthrown their democratically elected government. And oh my God, why would they do that? They're turning to Russia and the Wagner Group. Oh my God, things were fine before this, and now Russia is interfering in Africa. So there's all these stories that come out and that are done in a way so that even when people start to hear about it, because it's their first time, they see it through the lens of the Westerner and and how they view these conflicts and how they want the rest of us to view these conflicts. Nothing to look at here. It's just Africans killing other Africans, or it's the bad Russians or the bad Chinese interfering in Africa. And we're here to help put it back together and to end the violence. So you just keep on shopping and consuming. There's a new Drake album out. Go listen to that because we got this over here, whatever it is, because that's the separation that they do to us. And then we just have, then we wonder why, right? We wonder, like, we are just left with this Western media, and we have to spend our time debating or discussing or trying to make sure that there's ways in which we bring on people who, again, either are directly involved in the conflict and or are experts in it to sort of explain what is happening and what's the precedent issues that were been taking place that has led us to this moment now that the Western media is covering it.
Right. I agree. And then also the DRC, the leadership, the governments is very close ties with Israel as well. So, I think they were one of the countries that pushed for Israel's position in the AU. So which is another thing. So when people, I think it's easy to see, and I think again, my loose criticism of it, the whole world is anti-Black, because I think the way that plays out creates these sort of the way that people even engage or don't engage certain things, especially when they don't see it as African, right? I mean, one of the first questions, and not just from like reactionaries, but from actual leftists, quote unquote, online is, well, do the Palestinians support the Black struggle? And then I remember when Trump was in North Africa, and in the Horn, and calling them shithole countries and all of that, and people were protesting at airports, and a lot of Black quote unquote leftists were like, but do these people support our struggle? Like, so people are needing to prove themselves in order to get any kind of solidarity from a bunch of people who are not even interested in interlinking struggles for some sort of foundation for solidarity. So they don't even want to see that these struggles are connected in any kind of way, but they expect other groups of people to prove themselves in order to receive solidarity. And solidarity is not transactional. You're either going to give it or you're not, right? And again, I mean, to that extent, I can understand Cornel West's argument about morality, right? Even though I think it's more principled than a moral stance, but then that might be semantics too, right? What's the difference between your principles and your morality? But I do think that that's a lot of cause of the disconnect, is that people are wanting to. I know there was a comment once about Christianity in Jackie's when she had that really good show on understanding faith through like a liberation theology and things like that. And then someone had asked, well, what has God done for the African people who are arguably the worst treated people in the world? And I'm like, all right, well, okay. Yes, bad things happen to Africans, but should we be scaling it as the worst? Because Asia is huge, right? And Asia has a long, deep history too that I think we can make parallels about treatment and enslavement and colonization too. So I don't necessarily think it's a benefit for how we understand our own dynamics as internal colonized people or as oppressed people to say that we are the only ones who have ever been oppressed, repressed, colonized. No one else has had it this bad. And I don't know who that helps.
Yeah. And I think a little bit more is, for me, when you brought up that issue of like when people say, well, what have they it's almost like, what have they done for Africans, or what is their solidarity? And it's like, so when somebody like a LeBron James comes out with a statement, if some Palestinian person walked up to me and was like, see, Black people don't support Palestine, that's why I was like, what am I supposed to rein in some LeBron James? And I can't. And so I say that to say is that I have solidarity with like Palestinian organizers and organizations, who admit, that there's issues of racism in Palestine or amongst Arabs/Palestinians, and who through their work try to show the unity across race, class, structures, and so forth to target Western imperialism, which is oppressing us all. And that's what I want, right? So, but if I hear some Palestinian person say some random Palestinian person say something, I don't necessarily turn on and off my solidarity based on that. My solidarity is based on the circumstances, the conditions, the structural analysis of what it is that's oppressing all of us, knowing that there's additional issues out there that need to be resolved either within community or that need to be even brought up. I don't mind necessarily bringing up issues that of folks who I'm even working with around issues that I may say, that they may need to address. But it doesn't mean I cut off solidarity until every other issue is addressed that I think is an issue for that community or that culture or whatever. Obviously, if it's something that the organization that is claiming to support black liberation struggle, they do so in a certain way, which sort of harks back to the largest issue of racism in their larger culture, then of course you cut off that solidarity. But the solidarity at this particular stage with people and with organizations has to be one based on, like you said, principles and morality, but one also based on having an understanding that culture and societies are complex, and that you have to pick who it is that you are aligning with around the larger struggle and make sure that they are holding themselves accountable in terms of the work and organizing that you do. So you can't just like pick out individual acts of either racism or other betrayals and suggest that then therefore the whole society or the whole people are somehow not worthy of my support. I just think that's an analysis that leads people to say, basically their proposition is, I just don't want to work on that issue, or I don't care about it, right? Because it's not affecting.
Right.
In their minds, and I think they're wrong, their claim is that it's not affecting them and or us. And that's like, we'll just simply say that to come up with like these 15 different reasons why you think we can't support Palestinians and or any other group because of their racism and so forth.
Right. And I know people quote Dr. Clark a lot. I've seen it in the chat, but I don't think geopolitics are about friendships. I think they're about strategic alliances, and we should be looking at it as such. Dialectically, I think the use of friends kind of makes geopolitics seem like it's altruistic, and it's not. Like, we're not trying to hold hands and kumbaya with the world, but we do understand as internationalists that, especially in terms of, we're speaking about Africa does not exist on Earth separate from everywhere else, right? So if Africa is free, the day that Africa becomes free, Africa is not going to be free alone. It's still going to be a part of the world. So what does that look like? What do those strategic alliances look like to the betterment of Africa? And I think we see those questions being asked and answered in the Sahel currently. And then also objectively, the fall and destruction of Zionism is a net positive for all Africans everywhere. Because Zionism is not just in Israel, in occupied Palestine. Baltimore City is full of Zionism, top down. When we look at Mfume and Westmore and all of Cummings' program to send kids to Tel Aviv, that's Zionism. When we look at our Congress, that's Zionism. Israel's use in Latin America, the training the IDF uses formerly with Colombia. So I'm really excited to see the developments coming out of Colombia as it pertains to that relationship. But they've always had military training from the IDF. If you see in 2020, there was reports of reporters getting their eyes shot out with rubber bullets. That was an IDF tactic that was being used in Colombia during the uprising in 2019. So Israel doesn't just stay there, and they don't stay just torturing and killing and repressing Palestinians. Because of the backing of the West, specifically the US, Israel has a very long reach. Israel's in Africa, Israel's in Latin America, Israel's in your backyard. So objectively, the fall of Zionism is a net positive. And I think people need to start looking at these things objectively and looking at the root cause of things so that we understand where we need to be going and what the fight is about. Because without that, I think it then becomes a fight about some elusive liberation, right? Without understanding being liberated from what.
Mm-hmm. And not in understanding who's connected to us fighting for liberation. People don't even understand the history of liberation struggles and where people got their weapons from. Like
Right.
who helped import, who did trainings for or trained a lot of the armies and militaries for revolutionary struggle and battle when a lot of African nations achieved their overt liberation from Western dominance, right? So people don't even understand the interconnectedness between those struggles, what was happening during the Vietnam War, and the connections between the Cuban Revolution and the connections between African liberation on the continent. All of those struggles are intertwined and connected, not just ideologically speaking, but again, material support was given so that these nation states can have enough armaments, or these guerrilla units can have enough armaments to battle Western imperialism. It's so, like you said, this is not about friendship or this is about what is it that these folks need? What is it that people need when they do battle Western imperialism? You know, armies work off of and even guerrilla armies. You know, people need food, clothes, boots, weapons, bullets, all that kind of stuff are the things that they're not homegrown. Everything, like bullets aren't just made. You can't just put up a shop and just start making thousands of bullets or whatever it is that you need for liberation struggles. Mm-hmm. There's a larger connection. That's why when there was a Soviet Union or an Eastern Bloc or a larger socialist world, it was really important in terms of how Africans and other places conducted their liberation struggles. And when that was destroyed, the West seized the moment to become ever more dominant in world affairs during that time period. And it's only now, the past 15, 20 years, I would say in some ways, that we've entered a period where the multipolar world even has an opportunity to exist. And again, where other nation states are seeing that they want to break away from the West, and then that they have to support. Doesn't mean every government, we agree with everything that those governments do or whatever. But a lot of times that is the support, the only support you have to battle a larger force. And what are you going to do? You're going to like, oh, no. I don't agree with your religion. I don't, let's have a conversation about your relationship to racism or how you deal with racism in your country. No, the conversation is, if we're going to blow up this bridge that they use every day to do A, B, C, D, this is what we need. And your interest is in pinning them down so that you can do whatever you want to do over there. Our strategic interest is in stopping them from reaching over here to continue to oppress us in some way. And this is part of the strategic battle, the tactical battle that we're now engaged in. Well, of course, you need to reach over and accept the aid or the support, because otherwise you're not going to be able to fight those intellectually and or militarily who are oppressing us.
Yeah, which is why I defend Iran so hard. Not because
I completely
agree. I have any particular, but I do understand the importance strategically of Iran, especially in that region. The U.S. doesn't have 40 military bases surrounding Iran for no reason, right? Iran poses a particular threat to the U.S. and to the West, attempts to expand into the region. So that's why especially militarily, right? I think the people who are the hardest on Iran, who coincidentally, tweet out "Free Palestine" all the time, don't really make sense of that contradiction, right? Because exactly this time last year was the huge propaganda against Iran, right? Where they said that the morality police allegedly killed this lady. I've written about it in my hashtags activism piece on Hood Communists, giving details that a lot of the things that were reported were not in fact true. A lot of the reporters and advocates were net funded. So, anytime you see the National Endowment of Democracy, it should make you raise some eyebrows about how real is this situation,
and how these stories reach the level where we're there. All of a sudden, we are so interested in Iran, where people are crying and like you said, like doing flyers and posters and having meetings. And then they know, and the only way they got that information was because they got it from the New York Times again, or something, some other thing that
Right.
And again, I'm not even suggesting that there's not issues that Iranians need to deal with internally within their society, culture, structure, government, and the rest of it. But that is largely something that it should not be driven by your interest in it, by Western propaganda, and then at the same time claiming that you are a leftist, or not even understanding how that propaganda works. Because you're right, there is no liberation struggle in Palestine at this particular day and time without the Iranian Revolution. If people cannot connect those things, and they have not studied history whatsoever, there is no access that resists in the Middle East. That there is no kicking Israel and the United States out of Lebanon without the Iranian Revolution. You cannot look at what's happening on the ground in terms of folks who've been fighting back against Zionism and imperialism and the changing of their governments to be more friendly to the West, without understanding that the only counter to that over the last couple of decades has been Iran post the revolution. And when Iran was firmly in the United States camp because they controlled the Shah, it is the United States and other Western nations that gave Iran its nuclear technology that now they're claiming that Iran is using for nuclear weapons, which we know is not true. But it is. But that at the time they were allowed that because they were a friend of the United States. Just like right now, Saudi Arabia is negotiating in terms of its idea of having peace or some sort of reconciliation with Israel. Is part of what's on the table for them, is saying we want nuclear technology. And not only did Iran under the Shah get nuclear technology for nuclear power, but it was weapons grade nuclear technology that they were beginning to receive from the West. So the whole idea that it's just asinine when we have this whole idea now that somehow the country Iran is some evildoer or whatever like that. Is like, they were once in the pocket of the West for 26 years. The Shah was considered somebody within Iran who was repressive, who murdered his enemies. You didn't get a peep in Western media about that. You would think the Iranian Revolution came out the blue if you relied on Western media for your analysis of why there was an Islamic revolution to throw the Shah out and to have another form of government. Again, whether or not that's the form of government that I, as a or leftist, whatever, would subscribe, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's things that they have to work on and fix. Yes, and I'm glad, and I'll have part of that discussion. But is that the main interaction between that Iran and the rest of the world that we only need to be speaking about or talking about? Or that's when you raise up your flag around talking about Iran, and then you claim yourself to be some imperialist or some anti-imperialist or somebody who's worried about what's happening in Palestine? Then you have no idea how history works.
No, or how these alliances work, strategic alliances work. And I think it is important that people read up on the history of how these things work, because again, this time last year, people were willing and all prime and set to topple Iran, right? Without even thinking about what the consequences of that would have been for the region in total. So people were already going, imperialist feminism and, that sort of rad-lib women first, because it's easy to say Muslim men kills a Muslim woman, because that's just the type of PR, I guess, or propaganda that has been on Iran since 1979. And if you notice, during those protests, people were coming out with the flag from the Shah era, not right. So you know what they were actually calling for. They were aching for that time. And even online during that time, like women in jeans and things like that, like during that 70s era, under the Shah, they were like, this is when Iran was free. When Iran was like completely, under a dictatorship, under monarchy and all of that under the Shah, that was Western backed, but the women got to wear jeans. So that is freedom, right? And then comparatively now, right? Comparatively now, because they are more covered, even though when you speak with Iranian women, there's a plethora of opinions across the board on that, right? because they are having these conversations all the time, and they have been able to affect some sort of change in Iran in terms of what they look like and what they're able to wear. But these are slow incremental changes, and I think people expect that somebody raises a contradiction and then it gets settled the next day. And countries have processes, states have processes, organizations have processes, but these are already conversations that are happening. So when people dismiss it, like, you know, that was part of the issue for me with the West conversation, is because he was just completely, I mean, Islamophobia aside, it was just unfathomable that there could be any sort of democratic process happening in Iran. Any kind. He just couldn't, no, that's not happening, because I know people who are in jail. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't mean that there's no, like, I get what you're saying.
It's like a form of democracy. Yeah.
Right.
They have, I mean, they have presidential elections, they have senates, they have a parliament where people literally go out and vote. And it's so like, and at the same time, when you compare the treatment of Saudi Arabia in the media, it wasn't 2 years ago that Saudi Arabia even allowed women to drive a car.
Right.
Was there a great uproar in the United States ever about any of that? About the repressive nature of Saudi Arabia? There's no voting whatsoever in Saudi Arabia. I don't hear any huge uproar from so-called liberal leftists or progressives around the voting structure, the lack thereof of democracy in Saudi Arabia, because they're an ally. They play their role. So there's not, so, you know, up until the Saudi prince killed the reporter, there was not a negative word. Yeah, there was not a negative word about Saudi Arabia. And even that got downplayed to like,
I was going to say that was less about Saudi Arabia and more about Trump.
Yeah. Even that, and that got downplayed. It wasn't, and there's, you know, and now again, he's back in style because he's talking to Western companies about coming in and sharing and increasing profit margins for these Western companies. So, you know, so they don't care about the internal workings of Saudi Arabia, but you let for 1 second Saudi Arabia really do something for the Palestinian cause, like do something in the way that Iran has. See how fast Iran is vilified. When you had the overthrow of, when you had the so-called, what is it, Arab uprising or whatever, and you had the Egyptian government overthrown, and you had the Muslim Brotherhood in. With the 30 seconds, the narrative was democracy. The rest of the time they were in, it was like, oh my God, these guys are close to terrorists or they're repressing people. And that line stood because they allowed the military and the leftists in Egypt sided with the military to overthrow the Muslim Brotherhood, which was beginning to open up the borders with Gaza, allowing more information and materials to flow into Gaza, reestablishing diplomatic relationships with Iran, even opening up their airspace for Iran's flights to come over and land in Egypt. Then all of a sudden, this one time for 30 seconds sort of mystical story about the revolution against repressive governments got changed back immediately into this Islamic close to terrorist groups that is considered dangerous in the Middle East, has seized power. Liberals are upset. Mass marches are taking place. The overthrow of that government. The leader is put in jail and basically died in prison 2 years ago. The whole Muslim Brotherhood is basically squashed, repressed. People are murdered again, and now the Egyptian military is firmly back in the camp of the West. Closes off the border with Gaza, only opens it up after there's an agreement with Israel around what is allowed and not allowed. No fuel is allowed into Gaza. So it's all about what side you're on. And if you're on the side of the West, the media will find ways to hide and not cover, keep that repression under wraps until they can't, right? Until something happens where it boils over and then they have to give some semblance of the truth, but it's only a slight opening until they figure out who's back in power, who's going to be in power that's on their side.
Can I ask you a question though? Your doctor probably wants to come back. But I just, I was wondering, because I am I get what you're saying about Egypt, right? But I've been listening to what's been said in terms of like how they are assessing this. Now, knowing that Israel has always had these expansion plans, right? They basically want to create the Great Assyria all over again and make that Israel. So all of that land would then become Israel. And they probably want to expand beyond that because I don't know if there's ever a cutoff for expansion. But what I've been reading in terms of Egypt's position is that they're fully aware of what Israel has been trying to do, because once they let Palestinians across that border, there's no sending Palestinians back. Mm-hmm. So not only do they lose their land, but that Egypt has to now consider, what are we supposed to do with this like upsurge of all of these refugees? So I agree. There's a lot of Arab nations that have been they're not Iran. I could say that. They have not shown up like Lebanon. They have not shown up like Syria. Yemen has been quietly sending off missiles. But, so Egypt is not doing any of that. But in terms of like the border situation, that's a hard, I'm trying to think about what are they supposed to do in terms of that? Because again, it is a humanitarian crisis. And I do agree that they should offer some relief, but there is that understanding that once these people cross that border, they cannot go back.
No, and I agree with that stance, as in they see clearly that part of this Israeli war machine is to clear this land, to make it so difficult for Palestinians to live in Gaza that their only relief that they could ever have would be to leave Gaza and to go to some other places, right? It's very interesting, like during the time of the Muslim Brotherhood in power, there was a lot of reports that when Palestinians went into it and the border was more opened up for people to go in and come back. And a lot of times the Palestinians said they felt bad for the Egyptian population because their life was even worse under Egyptian rule, under the prior military rule, than life being in an open air prison. So that tells you about where the resources in Egypt have gone. Two is the Muslim Brotherhood at the time was helping support the Palestinian resistance by working with the tunnels to deliver other things that they needed through the tunnel apparatus, in spite of Israel's objections or knowledge thereof, but not being able necessarily to stop it, to not start a larger war. And so there's other things that Egypt could continually do to support the resistance, as opposed to continually bargaining with the Israelis on what's get in. What they could do is open up that border and bring in fuel and see what happens. Do the Israelis bomb an Egyptian truck? Do they? Wow. Why aren't the Egyptians massing their army on their border with Israel, to get to warn them that if this continues to happen, you may start a larger escalation and conflict? There's no reason why they can't do more than simply allowing the small, like through negotiations with the United States and Israel, allowing the smallest amount of and everything is pre-designed or pre-agreed to with Israel. What Israel says can come in. So that's my thing. It's not so much. I agree on the larger border issue of like the idea for the Israelis is to push out the Palestinians, but I think the Egyptians, of course, yes, no Iran, but could do so much more to put Israel on its heels than it's what it's willing to do. Because, of course, as we already know, the second largest receiver of U.S. so-called aid and or assistance in the world behind Israel is Egypt, right? Yeah. And that was the bargain that was struck. They gave us the accords, which said that Egypt would recognize Israel, was that Israel would continues to get the aid that it gets, but Egypt receives a huge amount. And even though none of that aid apparently goes back to the larger good of the population, it is billions of dollars that gets fed to the Egyptian military, that gets fed into Egyptian military leaders, government leaders, and that largesse keeps coming in, and that's what they care about.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because I'm watching The Crown currently, and they were just talking about Anthony Eden's run, and Anthony Eden was responsible for the Israeli-French attack on the Suez Canal, which they call disastrous because they end up losing the canal. So I just think it's funny to see where Britain and the US are in terms of Israel and Egypt today, and where they were then as allies to Britain. So it's like a complete turn where the US is running all the things. But that was a post World War II. So this is like a post World War II sort of era that we're coming out of, where the US is the empire that is backing. Yes, I am watching The Crown, you all. I am fully aware of my contradictions.
But speaking of the crown, the king, let's bring up the ear doctor.
Hey, y'all having a great conversation. I'm learning a lot here. I'm sure everybody that's tuned in is learning a lot too. So make sure we get more than 147 likes. Y'all hit that like button because there's a lot of good information going on here.
I don't need a like button. I've only seen one donation this whole show. I don't understand what's happening. It is November 1st. Checks were cut. Rent has been paid. You got to have like 5, 10, 15, 20. You know we're about to get a strike. We're going to need that money really bad soon. You can't talk this much about Israel and this imperialism and not have YouTube and these other channels try to like stop you from doing this conversation. So we need those resources soon.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Kamal, but you know, black people, we don't pay rent till the 4th or the 5th.
Well, it's just so give it now.
We're still getting it together. Yo, I agree with everything y'all said, but about that voting for who should drive and stuff. Listen, I don't know about that. We need to vote on who should drive down 85 South over here in Atlanta. Lord, they can't drive.
You don't understand the weaving, B. They be weaving in and out of traffic. And no, I'm not changing my smoke detector until y'all give me more money.
Word.
That's deep. First of all, I can't find out which this new house. There's so many goddamn smoke detectors. I was like, what were y'all doing up in here? What were y'all cooking, B? There's just like 35 smoke detectors. And then, when this comes on, you can't tell exactly which smoke detector it is. So you got to stand under one, then I got to go stand under another, then I got to go stand. And then these smoke detectors, it's like they just don't pop off. So then I got to figure out how to take the damn top off and then which the battery and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to take a while unless I get some more money.
Clearly. So come out. I mean, so yesterday I was just wondering, because it's a question that's still plaguing me. So when you moved into the new home, did the smoke detector come with you? Or is this a brand new smoke detector? And I'm trying to figure it out because y'all just moved.
These are the smoke detectors in. I'm not, they had a security system. I hate security systems because they always go off. And I was like, I don't know why this is going off. So I already cut that off. But the smoke detectors have always been. I'm like, I'm not. Well, I got some other security. I don't need a little thing.
Come out. Here's what you do. You go to this place called Home Depot and you ask them about a ladder. And they're going to point you to where the ladders are and you get one.
I need no damn ladder. I got a chair. I can get up there, but I don't know how to take that thing. Don't it take that hard to take off?
That's why you get a ladder so you can stay up there a little longer and figure it out instead of hurting your arm and back.
Get a tutorial.
That's true.
5 minutes.
I do like the YouTube thing.
There it is.
I fixed a lot of things in my life because of YouTube. I do give it some credit for that. All right.
Let's take a break because Ricky had it going too long. I don't realize Kamal needs a break. He needs a bathroom break. He's getting old over there. All right. Let's take a break right here on No Other Than a Remix Morning Show. Yeah. What's good, everybody? Welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show right here on Black Power Media. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Like I said, we only got 100 and something. We got 383 people watching live. Come on, stop playing. All right. Subscribe also if you're new to the channel so you can hear and know about all the dope stuff coming. While I'm speaking about dope stuff coming on the show, let me take y'all back and rewind a little bit and let y'all know what has been on Black Power Media. First, let's start off with Real Talk. Let's see what was going on Real Talk this past week.
I'm interested, and my audience is interested in what were the incidents and processes that you experienced that helped you to make the transition from what we call the Negro to Black conversion process or develop the Black identity, right? Yeah. So my first question goes to your youth. You're born in San Antonio, Texas. At the age of 5, you went to Virginia Beach. I imagine that's a pretty different, that might be a shock. But at any rate, I think you're raised in the 1990s and the early 2000s.
So make sure y'all go check out Real Talk as they get into that conversation deeper. Because somebody go get him some water. All right, next, let's take it to another great show we had right here on Black Power Media. It was talking about silencing the shame with Daughters of the Whirlwind when they had guest Shanti Das on there. Check this out.
Yes. So we all wore green today,
that
and
means
we did not.
Were all in the same space.
Yes,
space.
We didn't talk about it. We just did it, and Shanti came and joined us.
Yes, and here we are.
Here we are.
Yay.
Congratulations, by the way, on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to listen to.
We're enjoying this. This is something that we needed.
Yeah.
You know how they have those things that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And therapeutic.
Yeah, you're building space and community with one another. That's
absolutely
beautiful.
Very much.
Yeah, go check that show out as they talk about dealing with depression and how you could deal with it. She has a whole campaign going behind that. One of the music executives down here in ATL that's been doing it for a while. Last but not least, let's talk about one other show in case y'all was underneath a rock and y'all didn't check this one out. This was the return of Cornel West. Let's see what Jackie had to say.
What did Mao do to him? What did Stalin do to him? And how are you lumping those people in with Hitler? And then to prop up Jefferson and Washington as these patriots, that he has this collection of Jefferson and Washington, bunch of slave owners. Why are we supposed to be okay with that?
Oh no, but see, my claim was not to be okay with it. I was just trying to get the truth out in terms of what his particular right-wing perspective is.
All right. It's a lot of conversation going on there, a lot of dope shows, so y'all got to go check those out right here at the Remix Morning Show as we bring it to you on Black Power Media. All right, let's get back to our hosts right here, right now. Let's go. Yeah, rock this funky joint. So,
Doctor, did you watch the Cornel West interview?
Nah, I didn't get a chance to. How was it?
He was on the beach.
Yeah, I was on the beach.
He was on the beach. There's a lot of shows on. It's too many shows.
What?
I mean, it's like a lot of shows now.
That's beautiful. You got a lot of options. That's why you stay right here on Black Power Media. No need to go to any other channel, and you watch all the shows.
A lot of shows. It's a lot.
What's a good number of shows for you, Kamal?
I mean, my own.
Just you?
Just me. And then somebody else to talk to, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you got your wish come true right here. S. Barrows, keep the truth coming. Brown, black, anti-imperialism, solidarity. That's right. Let's come together and unite.
I've known Sandra for 30-something years.
Mm-hmm. Why? Does she still know you, though? That's crazy.
Well, she don't. She lives in another city, I guess. But, I was like, oh, Sandra. We did organizing together in CUNY, around CUNY in the 1990s. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were going to say the 1900s because my son does that to me. He's like, you were born in the 1900s. It's like, don't do that.
That's true. That's bad true. Big Till, I do watch BPM. I hit go around every show and I hit the like button. So
except for that last interview.
I hit the like button. I didn't
just okay. See, I do the reverse.
Oh, you watch and don't like.
I have to watch it all and then decide. Okay, yeah, that was worth it.
We need a hater button.
It might be a lot that's not worth it. I thought they did have a thumbs down button. No, they got a thumbs down.
No,
button.
they stopped using it. I think you can't. It doesn't matter. Before you could see how many people disliked it. Now you can't. So what's the point?
Yeah, I know. I like the dislike button.
X Essentials,
$20.
Thank you. All right,
we gotta get up to 100 though. I'm not doing no more news. It'll be like how much we raised so far today? It's like a ton.
We got about $45, $50.
And it. $50? What am I doing with that?
Hey.
What am I doing with 50? I need 100 on this.
But y'all bring
hell.
Y'all definitely
where the money at,
one.
y'all? I mean, that's not a good way to do it. Like, where the money at?
Nah, because like I said, it's the beginning. Kim tried to tell you wait closer to the middle of the month where people get that check.
No, don't ask me for nothing in the middle of the month. Don't do that.
Oh man, but y'all bringing it this morning. I'm gonna get out of here and let y'all continue to bring it, and I will holler.
Peace.
I have another story.
All right. Do you want the
ear doctor? If you want to pull up the union one.
Silence. Did he leave to go to the bathroom?
I don't know.
So if he doesn't bring that up,
you want me to put it on the thing? Let me.
You can do that. You want to put it on in the private chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll put it in the private chat. Oh, look.
Wait a minute. He came through. Look at him coming through.
That's not it though.
Oh.
Keep going. No, keep going down. Scroll. Scroll. Does it really do this? Let me see.
Top destination for foodies. That's not the story, is it?
No, that's not the story. I'm gonna put it in the private chat now.
You can start talking about it, and then I'll bring it up.
Yeah. I don't know if folks have seen, but I know one of the things I talked about, at least with Kim previously, is like how do we activate labor unions in terms of, or how do we support labor? Because in terms of like the rail workers strike or that labor effort, what they were trying to do was advocate for their fair wages and things like that. But I was saying in terms of this being a consumerist nation, how does labor work in that way where if we do get these wins of like higher pay, etc., what does that mean for the rest of the global South who are making these things that we're going to be consuming? But then the other thing that I've always questioned is how does labor expect solidarity and they're not showing solidarity globally, right? Like it's the rail workers especially, like we know that there are weapons parts that are shipped throughout these trains across the country to build a weapon, to build drones. So what would it mean if labor just stopped that? And then in Belgium gives us
your story. Sorry, so it says your story no longer exists.
Oh no! Wow. Well, I'll try to find another link, but but the Belgian transport unions, and I think it was about 6 of them, they have come together and they have now refused to ship any weapons to Israel. So any weapons or any weapons parts, so they have stopped shipment altogether. Let me try to find it now. So I just thought that was interesting because we also seen that play out in Greece during the height of the beginning of the Ukraine war, that we see internationally these labor movements are doing a thing that we're not really seeing here. And I don't know if that's because of the ideological struggle or the history of labor in these particular different areas, but it is something that I think we should be paying attention to think about or think through how we can utilize the labor movement here in terms of geopolitics.
Well, it's the missing piece in the labor struggle here in the United States is that labor unions aren't politicized to believe that other than getting higher wages, better working conditions, which obviously are important for the union, that their struggles exist outside of that sphere. Like I think that the unions here have been sort of trained or whipped into shape to feel like their only interest is in their own personal benefit, right? And so I think that becomes the issue because you can't even get unions anymore to say, like when we do the work around Cop City, like unions did not come out because some unions, particularly the carpenter unions or other unions that are the building unions, they may get resources because their thinking is that if we come out against this, then this structure doesn't get built. And if the structure doesn't get built, then there are no jobs for us. And so instead of coming out against something that has larger connections to what's going on in the world, they strictly pin themselves down within the structure ideas of we're only going to worry about benefits and pay. And I think, across the planet, unions have a much wider leftist, more radical view of obviously their larger role in society and how they can impact what wars happen and whatever, which is, of course, is always the foundation of what, Marxist theory and thinking is that it's the working class through their power and collective strength, which a lot of times gets operationalized through unions, that's going to be the key for stopping industry, because they can shut the power of their work. They can just shut that down through strikes. So they can shut that down by not using their physical labor to do the bidding of the capitalist class. But unfortunately, too many times, instead of that being sort of the ideological outlook, particularly in the United States, it's that stuff doesn't matter to us. What matters is improving our working conditions. I do like, I do like the UAW. From what I've seen so far, he seems to have a more extensive. I know that's not what this particular issue is about that we're going to talk about in a second, but he seems to have a very left viewpoint. And the question to me is, how does that get, if that gets operationalized in a larger way, which we look at the world?
Yeah, I can, I guess, read it now that we have the article up. So it's on Reuters, and Belgian unions refuse handling arms shipments for Israel-Hamas conflict. Can you hear my mother and son argue in the background? It's really disturbing that they have to do it.
No, we can't hear it as much.
Okay, but they're doing it right here at the store. It says Belgian transport workers unions on Tuesday called on their members to refuse to handle military equipment being sent to Israel to battle Hamas gunmen. The ACV pulls the BTB, BBTK, and the ACV Transcom union said in a joint statement that airport workers have seen armed shipments. While a genocide is underway in Palestine, workers at various airports in Belgium are seeing armed shipments in the direction of the war zone, the statement said, end quote. Israel says it's targeting Hamas military operations and not civilians in Gaza. A Belgian government spokesperson declined to comment on whether arms were shipped to the region via Belgium. The union said that loading or offloading these weapons would mean contributing to supplying organizations that kill innocent people. Quote, we, several unions active in ground logistics, call on our members not to handle any flights that ship military equipment to Palestine, Israel, like there were clear agreements and rules at the start of the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, end quote, the union said. The unions also called for an immediate ceasefire and asked the Belgian government to not tolerate arms shipments through Belgian airports. Quote, as unions, we stand with those who campaign for peace, end quote, they said. Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators rallied in cities in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia on Saturday to show support for the Palestinians. So yeah, that's a big development. But it's also very far and few. Because even as they said at the start of the Ukraine-Russia war, a proxy war, there was maybe a few labor parties that were willing to do that. But I do think that that's important in understanding how labor is utilized and the impact that laborers and workers actually have beyond just the strike, right? I think the strike is important, but I think there's other mechanisms of civil disobedience and interference that can be utilized to stop these things from happening. And I feel like mostly outside of the US, you see people attempting to answer those questions. What's labor's position or what's labor's role in the anti-war, anti-peace movement? Because labor has historically had a role in the anti-war, anti-peace movement through like the Communist Party, and then Marxist leanings and etc. So I think that this is just, for me, I think it just raises that contradiction of what worker struggles actually are here, and then it also makes me think about the actual impact of a BDS versus like on the ground workers interfering. Because while I agree with BDS on its face, the amount of companies that are on that list and the way that we as colonized people with no independent institution, no liberation zones or community control, trying to curtail avoiding, you can avoid a Starbucks, so you can avoid a McDonald's, sure, but that is a long list. And when you put products like a L'Oreal that is a conglomerate, that's in everything beyond makeup, then it becomes, okay, so what can we use? How do we make this sufficient and work for the everyday average working class Black person who does want to participate and show solidarity, but their financial means, these companies sell cheap products.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean for us?
It's like telling working class people to boycott Walmart, where particularly like here in the South or whatever, where it's like, do you know where people get the majority of their stuff from? And if we don't have those alternatives set up, like you said, there's no mutual aid system or no alternative systems. It's a hard stretch. And so when people actually call for boycotts or strikes these days, and I think sometimes people just call them out of thin air, they don't necessarily think about what it is that people are going to do if you are successful in order to meet their needs. And again, I keep pointing out the last successful strike in this country to me on any major way was the Montgomery bus boycott, right? So I can't think of another huge kind of people-led boycott that has had the sort of demonstrative impact that had at the time. But people, of course, see it as a part of history that they want to continually duplicate because it's got sort of a lofty historical lens to it. And so people think, oh, we can just do that again. Whereas like, you can't just do that again. But I do think the key to what you're bringing up is like the key to a lot of these struggles in terms of the impact that they can have in terms of changing dynamics, impacting what governments do is still around, it's not my area of work, but unions and labor-led either strikes or work stoppages, or having the ideological understanding that their labor is used could keep the Western machinery alive, right? To do exactly that, to ship something from point A to point B to point C. And that if that labor is withheld under certain circumstances or is redirected, then that is a huge instrument of power that I think labor unions, again, if in other places where there's a larger kind of breadth of ideological understanding of the power of labor unions, I think it probably will happen in terms of the Western world, Europe, way before it happens here. Again, I think there's some traces here of radicalized unions, but for the most part, unions are sort of held to a certain way in which they are supposed to get their work done, or the way in which they're supposed to win grievances and what the grievances are that they're even fighting for. And for the most part, they're not around sort of connecting to anti-imperialist struggles, to understanding their role vis-a-vis delivering weaponry in the hands of other people, and doing goods and services into the hands of other people. So, but they could, I think a few years ago, and I think Boots Rally has called for this a couple of times, but other groups, of course, have done this in Oakland, which is called for like shutting down the ports. And I think there've been some, every now and then there's been sort of a one-day kind of wildcat strike or boycott, which has worked, but it hasn't been enough to sort of reach a certain level of stopping goods from getting to certain places and to impacting the larger way in which imperialism conducts its business, because there's not a larger ideological understanding of the key role that unions and workers play in stopping capitalist ventures and militarized ventures from going forward.
Right. And I think a lot of that too is a disconnect from the everyday people understanding themselves as workers as well. There's like a lot of pushback on wanting to be a worker, right? Everybody wants to be a boss. And so not really understanding the power that a worker has and thinking that it's just some menial positions because of how exploited workers are, really has done a lot, I think, in this modern era, I guess I would say, with my generation at least, nobody really wants to call themselves a worker. Not at least of all a cultural worker, right? If they're artists, they're creatives, right? They don't want to be workers because of what that comes out, what that means, I think, essentially. But if they don't understand themselves as workers or don't understand worker power, then I think that these conversations that we haven't become a little elusive, right? If they become a kind of utopian ideas or idealistic ideas and not anything that's material or could actually work in organized fashion if we are organized to do that.
I use the term working class a lot in terms of like when I do either media work or I'm speaking to people, because I do think it's a lost idea in term. You're right. People prefer to think of themselves as middle class. They will even, I mean, it's like, B, you live here. How you middle class, whatever. Or like you said, they everybody wants to be on the come up. So anything that sounds or suggests to them that in some way you're regulating them to some lifestyle of like working class, it's like, what does that mean? And again, because people don't either have the kind of the underpinnings in terms of education or reading to say like, oh, this is what that means. And it's not a bad thing to be a part of the working class. There's a lot of power if we understand our role vis-a-vis capital in doing the work to see some sort of power through that positioning, right? But because there's no larger ideological framework in which people feel connected to each other because of their class, because we're so itemized in terms of how the way class struggle works, or the way people are think of themselves, again, particularly here in the United States, is that everything is individualistic. Everything is about me being up on the coming up on a come up. Everything is dog eat dog. Everything is sort of Horatio Alger is in I'm gonna get mine one day and be rich and blah blah blah, moving out the hood. So since that's the biggest selling point, the working class unity aspect of it is hard to drive home. And so I think partly it's again, what we can do from the places that we're at is reinforcing that working class unity discussion and struggle, because that's part of the larger work for me, is that people to even be able to identify like what class structure they're at in terms of the larger structures of society. Now, somebody who's always been working class. See, look, you don't even like being called working class.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, my thing is, I don't like working for people. I like working with people. So the whole for thing, I mean, let's keep it. People don't run stuff right. So then I'll be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll do it my damn self.
Yes, sure.
I mean, and then even yesterday, somebody was like, yo, could you do photography? I said, yeah, hell yeah. Why not? Do you do video? Yeah, why not? Because
when you say why not, do you actually know how to do it?
I was going to say, like, are you just saying that you could just try to do it, or you're like, you can do it?
You can do it.
Everything I do is experimental. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm here.
Correct.
I mean,
when you was cooking them drugs in the laboratory, was that experimental, or you kind of knew what you were doing? It was like on. I mean,
you don't see me doing it now, so I wasn't that good. But I'm done with
I'm just joking, y'all. He never really did cook.
Never. I cook, but not drugs.
No.
But yeah. I mean, I'm not big. I always wanted to learn no trades. I always learned trades just so I didn't have to get a job for nobody. I mean, I don't like working for people. I mean, that's what it is. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, real quick, and get y'all to some Artist Spotlight, and then we're gonna get you back to some news before we wrap up this show.
You're gonna do a mix though, right? At the end, we hit 400.
We did hit 400. So yeah,
we did hit 400, son.
We just barely hit it too, boy.
But we did hit it.
Not barely.
But we hit it.
I mean,
and we might go right back up there. We might go right back up.
Okay, let's see how this break goes.
Well, let me text a few people. Show up.
Okay, all right, that's what I'm talking about. Teamwork make a dream work right here on the Remix Morning Show. Yeah, let me take you to the D, right in Detroit, Hits Town. That's where we going in a minute as we do an Artist Spotlight. This is the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. And yes, you are tuned in to the best morning show on the planet, in case you didn't know. Go ahead and hit that like button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It's on again, so we get back up to over 400. With that said, let me give you a quick spotlight. Who am I going to talk about? No other than Mary Wells. Yes, Mary Wells got them jagged edge teeth, boy. I see you out there. All right, Mary Wells. Let me talk to you about Mary Wells. She is known to be, let's say, the queen of Motown at a certain time. But she goes by Mary Esther Wells. She's a singer. She helped define that Motown sound. She was along with the Supremes, the Miracles, the Temptations, Martha Reeves, Four Tops. She was all part of that part where you brought black music onto the radio. All part of Hitstown, you know. And she did a lot of songs with Smokey Robinson. One of her biggest songs was Grammy nominated "You Beat Me to the Punch." Came out in 1962. And My Guy, yes, you know that song right there. My Guy, yeah. Oh, that's not My Girl. Well, almost sound the same. But that came out in 1964. Well, she pretty much came up out of poverty, straight out of Detroit, Michigan. And she was around 17 years old when she started getting out there and getting onto the singing scene. Got discovered by Barry Gordy. Barry Gordy said, all right, let me get you in the studio. Did a song, took about 22 takes to get it done, but finally got it done. After that, she was on the label, started working with all the different great artists on the label. She put out a bunch of songs, but after a while, in the height of her success, she had contract problems and wound up leaving Motown. She, after that, she did some more music here and there, but never really blew up again after that. She had her big shine. She wound up having a transition in 1992, dealing with cancer and pneumonia. She was married to one of the Womack brothers, and she also is in the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. Still waiting to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where she was nominated twice. But she has over like 16 albums and 27 singles that you got to go check out. So this is Mary Wells. In case you didn't know, now you do. All right, let's go ahead and get back to my crew, known as the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Nothing you could say can tear me away from my guy.
Yeah. And there you go. Nice artist.
That's a Sister Act song.
That's a who?
The Sister Act song.
Sister Act.
That song does not sound like My Girl.
It don't. That's why I was like.
No, I said it don't.
It doesn't at all. No, not one bit.
Okay.
It doesn't.
You right.
I know I'm right.
It's about time. Shit. When you talk about music, you're never right. But
that's also true.
That's also true. But
you know what?
Yeah. So big up to the whole Motown sound. A lot of people don't realize that this was the turning point for a lot of black music getting on radio. Thanks.
I'm not surprised that she had contract problems dealing with Barry Gordy.
Right. They was trying to, and then she got out of it by saying she was underage when she even signed it.
Ooh.
Yeah, she was smart. She got a smart lawyer at the time. You know, they worked it out.
Couldn't they have all done that though? Motown didn't sign too many adults. Smokey.
Yeah, I mean, Barry knew what he was doing.
And we had this discussion. Motown. I mean, that's like it's a little house, B.
Yeah,
it's amazing what happened in that. You know, you in your head you're thinking Motown is some corporate office someplace, but it's like in somebody's house. No more than like 1,200 square feet.
Mm-hmm. Going back to hip hop, like D&D Studios, you know, it's a small studio, but a lot of music came out of there.
Yeah, Devontae had them in a basement. Missy and Timberland and Tweet, and Genuine.
Look at the Dungeon Family, a small basement underneath somebody's house. So that's where the greatness.
That's how it starts. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it. I'll catch you at the end of the show.
With a mix.
Keep up with this news, y'all. Y'all doing a great job, I must say.
I don't like your compliments. They seem a little
undertone of like.
Yeah. Like what are we, rookies and shit? You know what I'm saying? He likes the news. Apparently, he likes it when we do news. I brought up a couple of story you want to go to next. I think the Haiti ban.
Yeah. Just
hey, why y'all getting that Haiti band together? Let me go ahead and John Kemper, $10. Come out always trying to get paid. Not lying about that. 2 F's. Check if your smoke alarms are hardwired. If yes, please turn off the power before staying on a chair and trying to deal. Kamal, look, good advice there.
Nobody who turns off the power when dealing with smoke alarms. Nobody does that.
I don't know, but I feel like that was good advice for you.
Yeah. Specifically.
Something might happen to you.
Leah Boggs always saying Leia, but today's show was fire. The duo is fire. Kamal, don't bother me about the missing penny. Sending super chats on your phone, you can't change the amounts. Thank you, Leah.
She said, "Take it up with you
I
too."
was about to. I mean, then you should probably just give 10 and it'd be $9.99 instead of 4. But but I appreciate your $4.99. You done here, Doctor?
I think so.
Oh, he just stopped talking. Yeah, but he's supposed to.
I think that's our cue.
Oh, my bad. Here we go. Story about Haiti's pulled up.
Yeah. So on Instagram, I think last week, I was sent this video. There's a popular, I guess, Haitian American TikToker, Bertrude, I believe their name is. Bertrude makes this video, this egregious video, stating that Nicaragua is using Haitians to gain favor. So they are calling Haitians to come to Nicaragua so that they can gain favor. But then in the comments, she goes on to say she looked into it and hasn't really found much, but she's sure it's anti-Blackness. And I want to point that out because you see why me and Frank have little issues here going. Yeah. But I bring that point up separate from this article because in 2021, I believe, when they were running 2022, when they were running the last election, and they had during that year 2021, they had all of these candidates for Nicaragua's election, right? And then it turns out half of those people couldn't run officially, and one of those people was this man from Bluefields. And Bluefields, for those who don't know, is an autonomous African zone. So there are Africans there. They own that land. They govern themselves. They are still part and parcel of the larger Nicaraguan state, but Bluefields is on its own. So he comes from Bluefields and he's running for president. And then he does this interview with Vice News that says that that Ortega arrested him illegally to stop him from running for president. Ortega is racist. Nicaragua is a racist state. Anti-Blackness, right? And then I had the chance to go to Bluefields, and I had asked them about this man specifically, and the laughter that was let out because they know him. He is not from Bluefields. His mother is from Bluefields. He is an American. He is from the US. He's also Ned funded. So isn't that great? But I say that to say that these are the type of narratives that take hold when people don't know anything about the country. And Nicaragua is finding itself not in a similar situation as Haiti, but a parallel situation in terms as far as nobody's really speaking about what's going on with Nicaragua in terms of the overwhelming sanctions that are happening to Nicaragua that are really plaguing the country at all. And we can't find it from any of the Americas, right? Similar to where we can't really find too much support for Haiti from the Americas. I think that, what's his name? There's an issue with Colombia right now. Then Lula gave some words about Ortega. So there's no real defense of Nicaragua, even though Nicaragua is part of that triple axis of threat, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. So now that many Haitians have been been able to go to Nicaragua to find some sort of stability, that's been going on for months. I know Al's in the chat. Al knows someone who was stuck in Dominican Republic, in fact, and was able to make it to Nicaragua. So this has been going on for a while. And then here comes the claims of anti-Blackness, right? And that Nicaragua's using Haitians to gain favor. Favor from whom? I don't know. Because who would they be appealing to? But then I think yesterday or the day before, then this news comes out that Haiti bans migrants from chartering planes to get to Nicaragua. And I do want to be clear, right? Because I think in the ways that we have been connecting Haiti to Palestine, we have been emphasis on Haiti's colonial imposition, right? So Haiti didn't do that. That is coming from the West. The West has stopped that. Because what would it mean for Haitians and Nicaraguans who are, the least defended in the region, to then find some solace or solidarity amongst themselves or with each other? So it says here that Haiti's government has banned all charter flights to Nicaragua that migrants fleeing poverty and violence had been increasingly using in their quest to reach the U.S., according to a bulletin issued Monday that the Associated Press obtained. Haiti's government did not provide an explanation for the decision in its bulletin, which was first reported by the Miami Herald. Civil aviation authorities in Haiti did not respond to message seeking comment. The move left a couple of thousand angry and bewildered travelers stranded in a parking lot facing Haiti's main international airport and capital of Port-au-Prince, surrounded by their luggage, with some holding babies. Quote, I have to seek a better life elsewhere because Haiti doesn't offer my generation anything, end quote, said 29-year-old Jean-Marc Antone. It's either hold a gun and be involved with the gang, all right, Antoine, or be killed or leave the country. So yeah, we can end there. It goes on further, but I think that's a good place to end it because I think that just encapsulate what a little bit of the reasoning. There has been a couple thousand flying over, so, because I know initially last year, especially when we see the images of the horses and the whips, we know that they were walking, in fact, up from Brazil and coming in through that canal and then reaching Mexico and getting stuck at the border there. And there are still thousands of Haitians stuck at the border. But I think Nicaragua or flights to Nicaragua has offered something different than being stranded at that border with nothing. And now people have been taking advantage of it. And then here comes the West, aka Haiti's government. Stop it.
It's the box. I mean, this is the box they put us in, right? It's
right.
Yeah. If you stay and if you fight back in some organized way, then you're a terrorist or a leftist or someone who needs to be put down. If you join a gang or you fight back in some illicit way, then you're a criminal and therefore you could be arrested. And if you do nothing, then you're just at the whim and living a life of poverty. And if you try to leave, we'll shut that down too. So, but we're not going to give up control over the resources and the government and the landmass, right? So that part is it's like baked into the cake. They will do anything they can to stop you from either getting out the situation one way or another, right? Particularly if you're not of the type of people they like. There's nothing blocking Ukrainians from coming to the States because it fits into a narrative that they want to export to the world. But other people, they get blocked immediately because they don't want more dark faces in the United States, period.
Yeah, I think a large part of that block is twofold. One, it gives cover for attacks on Nicaragua. But then two, it stops people from using Nicaragua as a means to come to the U.S. because that's what they've been doing. Nicaragua has not really essentially been the final destination for folks, but it has been one destination that made it easier for them to come into the U.S. And what's funny is there are Nicaraguans stuck at that border as well. Hundreds of Nicaraguans stuck at the border, and a couple months ago, the 2018 coup, the people who were tried for having the coup, they had to sign a statement saying, upon release from jail, that they would not do that again, or they would have to suffer, some consequences. And then the people turned around and did it again. So then when they sent them back to their handlers, which was the quote, right? We're sending you back to your handlers. And they put 221 people on a flight into the U.S. And all their paperwork got done on that flight. So by the time they landed, everyone had their visas, everyone had a place to go, even some had money. They were taken care of, which is not the same position that you would find Nicaraguans leaving Nicaragua because of the sanctions to find some sort of relief that are stuck at the border. So in terms of how they handle these situations, right, they're not flying Haitians into the U.S., taking care of their visas, and they're not doing any of that for Nicaraguans, Haitians, Cubans who are currently stuck at that border. But any sort of relief or mechanism that is found, or any sort of solidarity amongst the Americas, because I think the U.S., they're trying to squeeze their way into a little conflict between Colombia and Nicaragua, especially with the presence of them building the U.S. military base in Colombia. So I think that any sort of instance where they can affect some sort of what's the word? No solidarity, or they can impact that. Yeah. If they can impact that, they will. And we're seeing that play out here. But because Nicaragua does not read African, right? Because people don't know shit about Nicaragua. To tell you the truth, to tell you the honest truth, nobody really knows anything about Nicaragua. Which is why I always say go to these delegations. You really learn a lot. But because it reads as a non-Black nation, and people don't even know about the autonomous zone.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, then it's easy to say anti-Blackness. Mm-hmm. And that's troubling, right? Because it's not to say there's not instances of these things, right? Or there's not racial issues. They don't exist. Of course, they exist everywhere. People are having to manage that and learn how to deal with that. But that is a distinctly different thing than using anti-Blackness to attack a country, to then topple the regime, and then leave a people destitute. And I don't think people are making those connections when they just loosely throw it out there as some sort of material basis for attacking a country.
Because all they want is the notoriety that comes with calling somebody out or calling some country out. And then you brought this up, and it brings back to me, all of these countries are heavily sanctioned, particularly the left socialist ones, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. And it harks back to why, these countries are no military threat to the United States. But the problem is that if these countries are allowed, this is, in terms of Westerners thinking, or the capitalist thinking, to create socialist economies that are not dependent on the West, that are separate from the West, as in they're not part of the capitalist orbit, then it gives other people ideas about what they can also accomplish. And so the reasons why these countries are so heavily sanctioned is that they do everything they can to stop these economies from growing, from being sustainable, from taking care of their internal populations, from being something that people can look at and say, we should try that here. Because when we try what the West prescribed to us, all of a sudden our land is owned by 1% of the population, and most of that population doesn't even live here anymore. All of a sudden we are just basically the rising job for countries in the global South are security jobs, right? And that's the same thing is happening here, where basically the working class is hired as security. If it's not formally being a cop, it's being a prison or prison guard, but then there's security guarding the property of others, whether or not they are low-level capitalists or corner stores or gas stations or supermarkets, or whether or not they're higher level. Other than that, you're not, like, a lot of the work isn't there because these places are shutting down people's other opportunities to get things done. So when you look at the economies in the South, the reasons why they are attacked so much in these harsh blockades are put up against them is because they don't want them to succeed in developing socialist economies, or economies that are not dependent on the United States or at the whim of what the United States wants them to accomplish. And for the most part, these countries are very small and not in a position to either to fight back economically. And then the other countries around them are also threatened with economic sanctions if they do anything to break the embargo. So it's not, and then what you get is, like, again, the Western media distortion of what's happening in the countries is like, oh my God, look, people want to leave. Well, people are going to leave any place. Right, when whether or not it's picking up and moving from one city to another, or picking up and leaving from one nation to another, when it feels like they're closed in and they can't see the possibility, because they're not necessarily politicized people, they can't see the possibilities of having a good life for themselves or their family, and the larger sort of like political rationales or reasons for it, they don't see themselves in a position to fight. Right, they just want to live in some way. So we always have to go back to even in a country like Haiti, which is not necessarily a socialist, obviously it doesn't have a socialist government, but Haiti had the nerve to free itself from Western dependence, to end slavery by fighting and beating off the West, and has been punished ever since. And anytime Haiti has tried to track left, it gets punished even more. And part of what's happening now is to make sure that vibe of Haitians fighting for self-determination never gets to sort of rear its ugly head again from their point of view as Aristide. With all the limitations of who Aristide was the embodiment at that time of a larger left movement, right? That got talked about as Lavalas in terms of the flood, in the English translation of this larger leftist movement, saying that we are trying to kick the West out and do things differently. And then that was, again, destroyed by the United States, twice overthrowing Aristide, changing the ways in which the structure of land distribution was given, or stopping land distribution from happening. And we are still, in Haiti in particular, in that stream where West is ultimately controlling the government, who gets to be president, and all those backdoor organizations, of course, so that people don't know the name. I think there's like the I'm forgetting the name of it exactly, but the Democratic Committee for such and such and such. All these organizations, which are NGOs in places like Haiti, which per capita has more NGOs than any other place in the world. All these places, all these institutions come in and help. They're supposedly going to help with governments or the distribution of food and so forth. But yet the Haitians remain poor, and their country is destabilized with having more NGOs in any other place in the world per capita, but still somehow nothing gets fixed because it's not meant to be fixed.
Right, and that's the same case with Nicaragua, which is why I said there's so many parallels between the two. To your point, right? After the Sandinista Revolution, when they had a whole constitution change, and then they had the Contra Wars, right? Post Contra Wars, they were given not so much an option into voting into neoliberalism. So they had 16 years of what they call like the dark ages or the dark years of neoliberalism up until Ortega runs again. So all the gains that the Sandinista Revolution made was lost in those 16 years, including education, health sectors, like all of those things, women's rights, even Bluefield's autonomy. The autonomy of Africans was not even recognized during those 16 years, even though it was their land. And then Ortega comes back into power with the FSLN, and you see the shift change. Women, up to 90% of women, not only feel safe, but are covered in healthcare. The advantages, they're over 96% food sovereign. Everyone has equal and fair education. Everyone is represented in the government. Even street vendors are unionized. Like, that's the level of organization that Nicaragua has going on. I mean, it's so much more, but a lot of how people understand Nicaragua to be is like human rights violations, the same way that they do rising gangs with Haiti, right? And that way that they can impose more sanctions and strangle the country more, so that when people start to leave, they could say, see, it's a disabled country, it doesn't work, and this is why Ortega needs to go. And they have been doing this continuously year after year after year. And I do think one of the most significant things about a potential in solidarity between Haitians and Nicaraguans is the fact that Nicaragua did get the OAS out. And one of the only countries in the Americas that does not recognize the OAS, has cut ties with the OAS. And when you think about the role that the OAS alongside the core group has in Haiti, this is significant. So someone corrected me that she didn't say, I guess the language that I used, that she said to gain favor. That she said that they were using Haitian migrants as leverage with the U.S. I don't see those being different. I think that's semantics, really. But if you have ever listened to Ortega's speech or anything coming after FSLN, and they are long speeches, I just want folks to know I had the pleasure of sitting through this man standing for 2 hours. 2 hours, no notes. So they are long speeches, but he's very clear, and FSLN is very clear about what they plan to do and where they plan to take the country. And none of that has to do with begging the U.S. for anything or trying to look a certain way to the U.S. Ortega and FSLN are very clear about the U.S. being the enemy to any self-determination and sovereignty, not in just Nicaragua, but the overall Americas, which is why there's these calls for do not let them build a U.S. military base on Colombia, because of what that would mean for the region as a whole. The U.S. does not need another military base in the Americas, but certainly not in Colombia, where we're seeing these left forces for the first time in a long time actually excel. So that's what I just wanted to know. I will always continuously defend Nicaragua. I do not care. With the same emphasis that I defend Haiti and Cuba and Venezuela and the Americas, and understanding again the same as with the Congo and Palestine, that there's a primary contradiction of Western imperialism and Western forces that are behind all of these things that create these parallels of our oppressions and our struggles, even if we don't want to compare them.
I got nothing. We can leave it on that and bring up the ear doctor, because she just dropped it. She dropped the mic, son.
She did. I thought Nicaragua is where they made nicotine. Maybe
you know what?
What?
Can you just play the music?
I guess so. All
Jesus
right.
Christ.
All right.
Well, is there gonna be some Biggie? Is there gonna be some Biggie?
Not this time.
No Brooklyn?
Why do I get up in the morning?
I don't even know. But take your kids to school. That's really it. All right, so let's go ahead and leave on this note. We will see y'all back tomorrow at 8 a.m. right here at the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Let's
do that.
Let's know the song exactly what it is. Just move your hips with a feeling from side to side. Sit yourself down in your car and take a ride. And while you're moving, rock steady, baby. Let's call this song exactly what it is. It's a funky and love I'm feeling. In the hips from left to right. What it is I might be doing.
Get it on. Jungle boogie. Jungle boogie. Get it on. Jungle boogie. Boogie. Jungle boogie. But with the get down. Jungle boogie. Down. Jungle boogie. Shake it around.
Once again, welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show. As we keep it rocking for you and yours, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep it moving. All right, let's bring love back. Come on.
Won't you need me? Why can't you hear me? You seem so far away. Please don't stay astray. Teardrops just keep falling. My heart just keeps clouding.
Come on. Who is this for?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
out of here, y'all. Once again, this is the Remix Morning Show. We be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. So tune in. All right, and tell a friend to tell a friend. It's on again. Peace.